creative, an advocate for justice, and most often, a great sense of humor. And Dr. John, kind-hearted, compassionate, a change agent, a servant leader, and a great humanitarian. And Sister Suzanne Brennan, a pioneer, enterprising, knowledgeable, wise, amiable, justice-centered, and a dedicated leader. So please join me in welcoming these incredible individuals who were key in founding the Holy Cross services up here in the Wasatch back. Sister Suzanne and Miriam, Dr. John, come on up.
The longest and oldest.
That was my mother who said that, right?
So in our preparation for this event tonight, we had a pre-call and decided that instead of doing presentations, to just have a nice conversation about our ministries together. And so I want you to know how honored we are to be here this evening and to see all of you. It brings back many, many pleasant memories. And we want to thank Emmy and the staff for this invitation. So the question we have now, how do we decide on how best to respond, to the needs in the community and so on? So as a history, the Sisters of the Holy Cross came here in 1875, and under the leadership of what we call Mother Augusta. And she came here with another sister in August of 1875, and they opened a school in the hospital in October of 1875. And they also created, at that time, the hospital and the school was to serve the minors and the children. And so they really started the first HMO, health operating ministry, where a minor could pay 75 cents a month to get care in the hospital. It was the first HMO. So it was really very innovative. So we continue to be innovative, I think, and we have what I would call enduring priorities in this community, which are very consistent with our core values. So tonight I thought it would be good if we talked a little bit about how we made decisions and how we have intervened in the communities. And so talked a little bit with John about different things, and Marianne. And so one of the questions I had in how we determine decisions and how we respond to all these needs was one of our, we call charisms, is responding to the signs of the time. So how do we read the signs of the time, and how do we respond? And as you know, in knowing about the Park City community and Summit County and all, there are many, many, many needs. And so how do we choose, how do we decide what to do? And so one of the questions I had for John and Marianne was, there's some situations that we have seen, and the question I have is, these situations, how can you say no to these? And so I asked John and Marianne to think of a situation that they had seen or been involved in, and how could they say no to it, and how did they respond?
I'm not going to respond to that, Sister Suzanne. I'd like Sister Marianne to go first. Mine is like a twofer, because these both happened during the same summer, and this was back when, it was in 1999 when we started the People's Health Clinic, and Sister Suzanne, Sister Marianne were, and Home Cross Ministries, of course, were the catalyst for that. And so we had a health fair at the high school. We were trying to get supporters, financial supporters. And someone said, well, how do you even know there's a need? Oh, because we just know. I said, well, that's not good enough. You need to do an assessment. So we had a health fair for people without health insurance. So we thought, well, we'll do cholesterol checks and blood pressure and sugar tests and that sort of thing. We thought, well, maybe 50 people show up, and that would show a need, right? And so 750 people showed up, and this is 22 years ago, much smaller town, and none of them had health insurance. And so that was an easy one, when Father Bob at the time said, well, John, we would like you to be part of this as well. That was an easy yes. I mean, you just couldn't say no to that, right? There's so many people didn't have access to health care. And they were the backbone of our community. People were working in our hotels and restaurants and ski resorts and construction companies and all that. And at the same time, one of the gentlemen who was in that initial founding group, Joe Mitchell, said to me, hey, I've taken a team of medical people down to Guatemala the last 2 summers, and well, you should come down with us. And I was like, no way. Molly was 6 months old at the time, and I can't leave, and this and that. He kept hammering at me. I said, okay, I'll go. So we went down there, and there were four doctors and a big team of people doing all sorts of things, translating, and we'd have a translator from Quechua to Spanish, and then Spanish to English, and then I would say something, and we were back. Anyway, I got to shorten this up. So we had 4 of us seeing the patients, and we were seeing 100 people each every day, and it was extraordinary in a lot of ways, and it was very a wonderful experience. We did a lot of wonderful things, but it was absolutely heart-wrenching at the same time. The poverty, the sickness, the disease that, just wouldn't have happened here. And so a young 2-year-old girl died at our clinic because we just hadn't gotten there 2 days earlier, So Joe said to me, this isn't right. I said, yeah, I know. He said, we need to quit our jobs and start a nonprofit to take care of this. And I was at the Park City Clinic, and life was great. I've been in family medicine for several years. And I came home, and I talked to my wife, and I said, I can't say no to this, we got to do it. And so he did. He was a minister of a local church. He left his ministry, and I left my clinic, and we started another organization, the Hope Alliance, which was completely connected with the People's Health Clinic and Holy Cross at the time.
I think the thing I think of is when we first started to work in Park City, and we really depend on our beach workers to connect with the community and then communicate back with us to say, okay, here's what people, here's what they're saying, here's what they need. And one of the things was how badly the kids were doing in school, and this was, probably around 2000. It was before the Olympics came to Park City. And so we looked at the stats for state testing, and kids in Park City were scoring 80, high 80s or low 90s with achievement, and our kids were in the 40s and 30s sometimes with science. And you're just like, okay, you can't not respond to that because they have no chance. one day I entered into a school system as an alien world. And I remember talking to a 10-year-old in 5th grade. And he hated school, he wanted to quit, he wanted to get a job. And I said, well, tell me why you want to leave school. And he said, I sit in the back of the class, I can't read, I don't know what the teacher's talking about, I hate it. I hate going there every day because I feel so stupid. And those kinds of personal sufferings that adults are more able to handle, but a 10-year-old, they shouldn't be in that situation. So you couldn't say, well, we shouldn't be doing something about it. So that's what really started a lot of our work in Park City with the help of St. Mary's and Father Bob, and giving us space at the parish to start an after-school program and then a summer program. And of course, we recruited all kinds of people in the parish. We had people making grilled cheese sandwiches for 90 and then 110 and then 120 for a summer. And then we're like, so then we asked to start and we call it a summer feeding program in the school district. And the principal at McPolin said, well, why don't you just bring the kids here? Instead of trying to transport them there. So we thought, that's good. So they gave us space. And so that's how the relationships, because I think it's like John was saying, you can't not respond to something. And we weren't in it for ourselves. And we found so many willing partners. And that's what I look out here and see you all to do, that we bring to work with us every day. And I personally have this, who could I call it, 2 in the morning list. And so many people in Park City are on it, going all the way back to so many of our collaborators here. Lots of goodwill.
So, as we noticed from our assessment, so many people needed access to health care, and so we decided to provide that, and so we got a mobile unit. And Sisters of the Holy Cross paid for some of that, Intermountain Healthcare paid for a large part of that. And so we had this unit, and it's doing well, but we needed more space, so we had to rent some space next to it so that people would have a place to stay when it was cold, so that when they could be called into the unit. And then we realized, well, there's water in this unit, and we had to park it. And where would we park it so the water wouldn't freeze in the unit? And then we had to have a driver and all these things. And so we learned, everybody would do their part. And so John served in that clinic.
So in the beginning, we all kind of chipped in and did whatever you had to do. And we had a clinic over in Hebron, one of the first ones we had, and I was driving the bus, so I drove the clinic over there, and that was frightening. It turns out you do need a commercial truck license to do that, and I didn't have one. But we get there, and for some reason the power wasn't working I think we were at the senior center. Either the cord we didn't have enough cords or something was out. So I'm like, well, okay, I know we have a generator, and okay, so I open up the generator hatch, and I'm like looking at it, I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm just turning things and messing with things, and wonderful human, Aniceto Almendarez, walks up to me, and I'd never met him before, and he was a promotor at the time. He said, hey, Sister Suzanne sent me over here to help you out. What are you doing? I said, well, it may not look like it, but I'm fixing the generator. And he said, aren't you the doctor seeing patients? And I said, well, yeah. He said, why don't you step away from the generator, and I'll take that. And that was the beginning of a very wonderful relationship with Aniceto, his wife then Alma, and many Holy Cross promotors who pretty much did everything for us.
So we learned we did not do things in isolation, and that we could depend on each other to teach him as we went along. And it reminded me of a story Miriam tells about one of the little boys in school.
You know, it's just such a combination of simple human truths, and then what you have to do to provide and organize after that, after those kinds of things. And as I said, we spent a fair amount of time assessing needs because we feel we have the responsibility of good stewardship, and so we want to make sure we can respond and how. And at the same time, what we're trying to do on a human basis, with seeing all of us as us, is sometimes so simple. And this one story, and I tell because it really nailed what we were doing there and made all of our work worth it. At St. Mary's in the after-school program, before we took it over to the public schools in Park City, we were shutting down, and the staff were just talking and laughing and scratching, and just at the end of the program. And Aniceto had a soccer team, pickup soccer, and so. One of the kids are getting ready to get on the bus and cars and to go home. And there's one kid just standing there and watching us, and Aniceto says, and he would call the kids campeones, champions. Everybody was a campeon. And he said, campeon, you have a question? You want to come and talk to us? And the kid came over and he said, and then, it's on. And I said, what's on your mind? And he just looked and he said, you seem like you like to be with us. We all were just like, oh. And he said, oh, yes, of course, we love to be with you. We're so glad you're here. But just that piece of communication said, that's why we're here. To accompany people, to affirm their good, their worth, their value, their humanity, and they are our brothers and sisters. And it made it all very clear. And at the same time, so you're working with that, at the same time you also are working with complex ways sometimes to provide services, which include many, many partners and many, many people who are of the same mind, that just need to be asked, and that we carry with us every day to work. And so people like EATS, Park City School District, Christian Center of Park City, People's Health, IAC, any of those people are who we work with. PC Tots would be another example. We did an assessment with child care as a result of a visit with the Park City Foundation, which is wonderful support to us. And one of the parents said, here's my situation. I'm a single parent. I don't have any place to put my kids when I come, when they come home from school. So that's what got us in conversation with Mountain Lions, and PC Talks was a result of it, because of working families in Park City. So anything like that we respond to is an invitation for other people to come on board, and they do the same with us. And it's a gratifying kind of thing to be working with people to respond, and when we see the results of it, it's wonderful. The results of working with people. We have a few stories like that.
So one of the, I think, enduring priorities that has evolved was the inclusion in creating safe environments of respect and equity, especially for women and children. And how so many organizations in this area have collaborated in order to achieve that, and has taught us that no one is in isolation and can be reached out to and served. So for me, tonight's real special to be here and to see some of the staff that I have worked with. And I really, the Sisters of the Holy Cross have been very supportive of Holy Cross Ministries. And we've done things at Holy Cross Ministries that probably weren't legal. and I really appreciate no one ever brought that up. And so, you see wonderful things DACA has brought about, and wonderful accomplishments that staff have made, and they've been able to raise their families and achieve such wonderful, wonderful things, and it's really gratifying to me. I can't tell you how much. So I said to John and Marianne, one of the things that I thought we could just kind of mention a little bit about is, I feel that gratification. I can't tell you how much I feel about that, but why we do what we do, and how good it feels to do it. And sometimes we don't talk about that, and I wish there would be some way we could express to people how good it is to do that. John.
Well, I think I'd be preaching to the choir on this. I think we're all here because you want to make a difference in your community. And we all do that because we're kind of hardwired that way. We want to leave our community and our world a better place than it was when we got here, right? And that's why you're here, that's why you support Holy Cross Ministries, and it also feels good, right? I mean, I couldn't stay at the People's Health Clinic or do things that I do if it didn't make me feel good. And I get so much more, out of what I do than I give. And I think all of us probably feel that way, right? When you do something as a volunteer or in your job that helps other people, you inevitably get more back, and it feels good. And I mean, the selfish part of me does it because, I feel great when I get to help somebody, right? But that's why we're all here. That's why we all do the things we do.
Well, I feel like I take all of you, even I don't know some of you, but I feel I take all of you to work with me every day because it's why we can do what we do. And I sincerely mean that. It means so much, especially when we see some of the people we work with be able to step out and claim some agency for their lives. I remember one of our moms who had to go back to work and had a 2-year-old to put into daycare, and she eventually wanted him to come to the 3-year-old classroom. But when she took him to daycare, he was almost potty trained, but the home provider she was taking him to said, "Well, where are the diapers?" And he said, "Well, he's just take him. He'll go." "No, I don't do that. I have too many kids. I don't have time." And so the mom's like, "This kid's going to go backwards. He works so hard. He feels so good about where he is." So she contacted one of our staff, parents as teachers, and said, "Here's the situation, and I just don't want my kid to go backwards." And so we were able to collaborate with PC Tots and find a place for him. So, yeah, he found a good place, but the great part of the story was Mom knew that that wasn't right. You know, that wasn't what she wanted for her child, and she had that kind of gumption and desire and courage to say, I need another place, and didn't have an option, but our staff was able to help. And it's seeing things like that, you know, people stepping up to the plate and to be advocates for themselves, that we are really very grateful for in a lot of areas. And when I look at that and look at how we scrambled, Miriam Garcia is here, to take a hold of early childhood. I mean, you know, we got a small grant to do a Saturday school to kind of overcome parents thinking that kids were maybe too young to go to school. But we finally, you know, got past that. And we'd see people in grocery stores, and Miriam would say, "How old is your child? Is he in preschool?" "Oh, well, we have this wonderful opportunity." You know, and I mean, that's how we started out, and going to apartments and asking people if we could use their apartments and gather some other kids to do weekly classes in the apartments. And it's that kind of legwork that, you know, how we started, but then to see parents, you know, like this be advocates for their own kids. Like it's that's the great part of what we're doing for our community. And that's such a wonderful part of what you all support. And I do mean that I do take you to work with me every day.
So we could go on with the stories and stories, and we just really want to thank you all for having us here this evening, and thank you for helping us to open doors. You know, one door opens another door and another door and another door. So thank you very much, Emmy.